Wow, what a week it's been. This is the Cybersecurity Whisperer for the week of July 21st. I will wait and speak about the Crowdstrike incident at the end, the world's largest cyber incident in recorded history. But first, I wanted to start with some other incidents that certainly you may not have heard about, but they could certainly have similar impacts on our company. So first, I want to start out with Disney. Disney suffered a massive internal communications data leak after a cyber attack, and so their internal Disney, as with many companies, uses Slack for their internal communications, and those have been leaked online, exposing sensitive details about ad campaigns, studio technology, and even candidate interviews. The hacker group NullBulge claimed responsibility for this, stating in a blog post that they had released over 1 terabyte of data from Disney Slack channels, which include software code and information on even unreleased projects. The data spans back to at least 2019 and covers discussions on managing Disney's corporate website, software development, job app evaluations, and more. And so, experts have pointed out that in recent incidents, hackers have breached Slack by exploiting stolen or leaked API keys. And remember, developers often integrate Slack into their automation tools, their CI/CD pipeline, and others. And in the process, sometimes they accidentally leak these keys on code sharing sites like GitHub or API platforms like Postman. And in the Disney leak, hackers gained access to public chat rooms, again, because Slack API keys by default have access to all of the public Slack rooms. And so this most likely, cause could be security misconfigurations or weaknesses in these various third-party integration that Slack allows for functionality extension. But whatever the reason, the attackers seem to have exploited the vast amount of data stored indefinitely by Slack's data storage and retention policy. So two things here. The incident highlights the need for stronger security in all of your workplace collaboration tools, and it also begs the question of, does your company's data retention policy match those of your critical third parties? Why are we keeping data that long and that old? Next is something interesting about that continues and always will be a concern, and that's the human element of cybersecurity and how cybercriminals are recruiting insiders for malicious acts. The road to a successful cyber attack often leads through an organization's employees. And so, after all, they already have authorized access, and oftentimes to that highly sensitive data, as well as intimate knowledge of the organization and its people's process and technology. And so sometimes employees can be used unwittingly, maybe through a social engineering attack, but other times insiders knowingly partner with external attackers. They sell access or data for cash. And this has impacted a number of worldwide brands. Think of one of the most noteworthy being a large healthcare firm where an employee stole data belonging to more than 500,000 customers from its CRM system and attempted to sell it on the dark web. And also back in 2021, authorities charged an employee at a large telecom company for providing SIM swaps to bad guys for $500 a piece. Insiders can also willingly share sensitive and proprietary data when they're motivated by ideological reasons. Take, for example, the 2 Tesla employees that leaked data about self-driving features to a German newspaper. And the shared data also included personal information of over 75,000 Tesla customers. Attacks harnessing the insiders are often carried out over time. The insider usually takes steps, of course, to hide their activity and remain undetected. And this approach, it's attractive to threat actors because it can have a high impact and a relatively low cost to execute. Contract staff, IT admins, individual contributors, lawyers, academics, senior executives, whether they be third-party contractors, current or past employees, they can all play a role of a malicious insider for attacks to recruit. There's really 2 common groups that these criminal orgs gravitate towards when they're looking to make this sort of attack. Those with elevated privileges with regard to, of course, system access or managing systems. So again, going on LinkedIn and seeing titles. And then those who may be motivated financially because they're in the lower wage brackets, maybe some of the entry-level IT positions. Human behavior, of course, is difficult to predict, but it's very rare, of course, that somebody would join a company with the goal, the intention of, I'm going to join this company just to become an insider and sell the information. But employees, however, they can be persuaded to work on behalf of the bad guys in response to maybe there's been a cultural change at the company or a change within their own personal circumstances. I mean, some individuals can also be motivated, of course, by greed and anger, ideology. But when recruiting insiders, the threat actors, they use various tactics, including blackmail and other coercive techniques to extort the information they need from an employee. And so the majority of these insiders on the dark web, though, ultimately are recruited by the financial rewards. Now on to CrowdStrike. Wow. On July 19th at 4:09 UTC, as part of ongoing operations, CrowdStrike, which is an endpoint detection and response vendor, released a sensor configuration update to Windows systems only. Sensor configuration updates, they're ongoing part of the protection mechanism of any EDR and antivirus platform. The configuration update, this specific one, triggered a logic error that resulted in a system crash and a blue screen of death on impacted Windows systems. The config file mentioned above, it's referred to as channel files, and they're part of the behavioral protection mechanism used by the CrowdStrike sensor. And updates to these channel files, they are a normal part of the sensor's operations, and they occur several times a day. Think about it. They've been occurring several times a day since the inception of antivirus, well over 20 years. You have to, in response to tactics, techniques, and procedures that the bad guys are using, that's discovered by the CrowdStrike team and every different EDR vendor. It's not a new process. Again, the architecture's been in place since AV and EDR inception. Think about it, in the realm of computing, few things are as unsettling as encountering a blue screen of death on your Windows system. The ominous screen, its cryptic error message, it invokes this alarm and frustration even amongst seasoned tech users. The stakes are even higher when this blue screen of death, of course, happens on a mass scale, if it's part of a wider incident that bricks countless devices around the world and even disrupts most critical services that we rely on every day, which is what happened this past week. First things first, what is a blue screen of death? It's a fatal error that forces Windows to shut down in order to prevent further damage. It can be caused by anything from faulty hardware components to outdated drivers that cause conflicts within your OS, serious errors within the system or critical apps, or updates or malware. When such errors are detected, Windows halts the operations. It displays this blue screen of death with a stop code and maybe sometimes even a QR code, and it restarts your system to prevent damage. While this blue screen is a sign that something has gone critically wrong with your machine, you may want to avoid panicking and instead refer to Microsoft's guidance that they have on that specific error code. More often than not, the issue is fixable and you can take steps to avoid it in the future. But these updates and patches, the benefits outweigh any potential risks by a long shot. But, of course, updates, software updates, they may introduce new risks, new issues. For example, they might occasionally cause conflicts or unexpected interactions with existing applications or system software. It might not always work well with older hardware components, especially. It may affect your system stability, possibly resulting in errors and ultimately even prompting rollbacks that provide a safety net if a recent update has caused problems. Again, this is key if you weren't backing up your desktops or your systems. And of course, sometimes the updates themselves introduce new security vulnerabilities that could be exploited by the attackers before that subsequent update is issued. And as we've seen with SolarWinds, sophisticated attackers may subvert the update mechanism itself to distribute bogus updates. In a perfect world, a cybersecurity team would take the update and test it in their own environment, ensuring no incompatibility. And once certain the updates cause no issue, then they would schedule a rollout, maybe one department at a time, thus further reducing the risk of any significant issues being caused to business operations. But this is not and cannot be the process for cybersecurity product updates. They've got to be deployed at the same speed that the threat is distributed, which means near instantly, because that's the only way you can catch the bad guys. If the update process fails, though, of course, it can be catastrophic, and that's what we saw this week. But this doesn't signify incompetence on the vendor's part. It's likely to be a scenario of bad luck, a perfect storm of updates, or configurations that created the incident. I mean, this is, of course, unless the update had been manipulated by a bad actor, which appears not to be the case in this instance. We shouldn't lose sight of who is ultimately to blame when an incident such as this happens. I mean, if cybercriminals and nation-state attackers didn't create cyber threats, we wouldn't need to have real-time protection. This is a 100-year flood type event. The last time this happened to me personally was, I think, 2011, 2012, somewhere around there with Trend Micro, and it had the exact same issue with blue screens. You have to give EDR and antivirus vendors access to your full system kernel in order to block the bad guys from ransomware and other things. And so it's going to happen that they're going to push out a bad update. And so I don't think the knee-jerk reaction of slowing down the updates, changing EDR vendors, obviously that's your prerogative if that's what you want to do, but they've all have the ability to do this. And no matter how well they test the products, it's just that CrowdStrike happened to be the market leader, having 23,000 customers, I think. And so they impacted over 1 billion devices being down. And I think I'm hearing $1 trillion worth of actual losses, maybe from these companies combined. But nonetheless, for the teams that have been working tirelessly since probably Thursday night to get your companies back up and running, you are the heroes. Kudos to you. Make sure you take a break this week. Get some sleep. Hopefully your companies are thinking you're taking care of your family, your animals, your cats and dogs. And again, kudos to the IT teams out there, the real heroes. Until next time, thanks.